Hey, what's up? Jesse here from How to Drum and Bass. Welcome back to the channel for something super exciting today. See, I've recently been working on a recreation of the super sick song Higher by Kanine, which has been playing in loads of set over the past like 2-3 years since it's been out, because I'm trying to understand more about the super energetic, sort of almost jump uppy, like super synth heavy dance floor stuff that's been going on in the past 2-3 years. I really love the energy, and so I'm going to be putting some more of this kind of drum and bass on my channel as well. This is a good first start. So I'm currently still working on the full drop reproduction of this, but I wanted to give you a sneak peek and talk already about how to make the main lead in this song Higher by Kanine, because it's so epic and it makes use of some really cool sound design things that we can definitely learn something from today. So as always, you can download the MIDI, you can download the presets and the Ableton racks and everything you need in the free preset link below, or of course you can go with me in the tutorial and do it yourself. Anyway, without further ado, let's dive in. All right, so the original Kanine Higher song sounds like this. So super epic, it's got a lot of energy, a lot of, what we would probably refer to as nastiness in there. And yeah, that main part is what we're gonna be looking at today, and our recreation so far, which the rest of this whole recreation will be another video next week, so definitely subscribe for that. But that recreation currently sounds like this. All right, so pretty cool. We're gonna be talking about the lead bass, I guess that's what you would call it, which by itself, just really quickly solo, it sounds like this. You're hearing a couple of volume pauses in there. That's because it's side chaining. That's not because anything's wrong. We'll look at that in just a second. So that's what we're going to be talking about today.
Hey, quick break. If you're enjoying these videos and you like my style of teaching and you've been feeling like you want to get more into sound design, specifically for drum and bass, then maybe you want to check out my brand new online course called Drum and Bass Sound Design Mastery. It's an absolutely massive course with over 150 videos spanning 14 hours of content where we teach you two things. In the first half, we teach you everything there is to know about synthesizing sound in Serum. And in the second part, we show you how to use that knowledge to create the most popular sounds in drum and bass. I guess you can see it like the ultimate masterclass of drum and bass sound design. So if that sounds like something you could be interested in, check the link in the description below to find out more about this awesome course. All right, let's get on with the video.
Now, first of all, you can download the notes of this in the free preset link as I promised, but if you wanted to have a look at sort of the progression here, this is what it is. It's actually pretty interesting because a lot of these sort of more energetic, jump-uppy style leads follow very simple patterns with lots of repetition like this. It's usually some cadence of notes, almost like an arpeggio, like dee-doo-doo-doo or doo-doo-doo-dee, followed by just a whole bunch of times the same note, and then sometimes, yeah, you switch it up a little bit. So it's just a reminder as well, you don't need to make it too difficult if you want people to dance. It can just be rhythmic. So yeah, let's have a look at this patch here. There's not that much going on, for example, in post-processing. As you can see here, it's actually very simple. We've got pretty much all of this done in Serum, and it's a really cool patch. So let me just take all these things off and let's have a look at what's happening here. Now, I want to preface this by saying that things such as the Reverb Filter, which we'll dive into, and the whole concept of frequency modulation, if those things are not familiar to you, then I highly recommend you to check out my brand new online course, Drum Bass Sound Design Mastery, in which we talk about everything you ever need to know about making drum and bass sounds in Serum. However, let's start by having a look at what this patch is. So actually, what this is, if you wanted to sum it up in a really quick sentence, it's frequency modulated sine waves that have been given some extra grit with two different reverb filters. There's one over here, and there's one over here, and that whole is basically distorted to sound, well, particularly nasty. And it's the sine waves that are going to give it the grit, so the rrr, and then it's the reverb filter that's going to give it that metallic, sort of nasty cherry on top. So let's have a look at what's happening here. We have three oscillators. The first one is a sub. There's nothing crazy about that. It's just at 0 octaves. We actually don't really need that because what we're going to be doing is we're going to cut out the sub later in this reproduction and bring in our own sub, but it's necessary because it will help add frequencies to what we're going to distort in the effects. So yeah, there's two sine waves. and they do what happens in a lot of patches. There's one at +3 octaves and +7 semitones. One of them makes the lower part of the sound, and the other oscillator takes care of the higher harmonics. However, that higher harmonic oscillator B is not only playing at a level, right? So it's also audible. It's also being used to frequency modulate oscillator B. We can see here that I've actually put a couple of macros in here because I also immediately put this sound into my Drum and Bass Essentials sample pack, which is available in the link below. And one of them is on FM. So let's quickly take off the filter. Let's take off all the effects here, and let's see what all of this sounds like by itself. So yeah, we have these two sine waves. One of them is being frequency modulated to this much. So about half, 50%. That's quite often where the sweet spot is. And you'll immediately hear that we get this very sine wavy sound. You can, however, already hear that there's some interference, there's some wobbling going on in there. That is going to be accentuated by the distortion. So let's put the distortion back in there. You can immediately hear that we are almost actually where we need to be simply by having some distorted frequency modulated sine waves at 3 octaves and 7 semitones apart. However, we can then go and sculpt the sound and make it bigger, nastier, and just more goodness, really. And so one of the things that you can do is to use the reverb filter. Now, the reverb filter is one of my favorite filters. We're going to use two. This one is more like a cherry on top. The other one that we're using is going to do a lot more of the real saucy stuff. But essentially what a reverb filter does, it is part of what a reverb emulation, like for example Valhalla or EOS Audio Damage or any other reverb has. It basically creates a delay of this sound. And because it's very close in terms of timing, it's going to give it a metallic sort of sound to it. And so what we're going to do is we're going to create a lot of stereo width by employing two of these reverb filters. One of them we're going to pan slightly to the left, and one of them we're going to pan slightly to the right. Now, just really quickly on sort of what effects do in Serum and filters, every time you insert something, it will split the audio into two channels, and depending on the mix button, it will have the full reverb filtered part or the original sound. So what's going to happen is we'll actually have multiple copies of this sound now that we have both these filters panned left and right, where there's something in the middle, and then there's two copies of the sound, one of them slightly panned to the left, one of them slightly panned to the right, that have two different types of the same filtering going on. So that is going to be different in one ear, different in the other ear. So you're going to get two different types of extra nastiness on there that are going to make you perceive it as super wide and realistic. And you'll immediately hear what that does. We get a really nice amount of grit in there. And especially when you're turning up the volume, which I'm not doing because it'll make this tutorial very loud, you'll really hear that out on the big speakers. And so about where to put these reverb filters, that's really up to taste. For this particular sound, it works really well to have one around 1600, 1700 hertz and to have the other one way more up the front. So this one actually really covers most of the spectrum. And then this is sort of more like the cherry on top that kind of crunches up this low end here and has the nice added effect of adding some extra drive here on pretty much everything before 1000 hertz or something like that. But you can play around with this cutoff as well. So yeah, you can see here as well, this is where the other filter is. That's really messing up the sound and crunching it up a little bit. Just makes for a really nice effect. All right, so what else have we got? We've got a noise oscillator here. Just adding a little bit of extra grit sort of to go into that distortion. It does nothing much more than just fill up the frequency spectrum with some extra content, but you could omit it. And then of course in effects, we have some other stuff going on here. We're accentuating a part of those mid frequencies here around like sort of the 422 hertz area. So like those mid-low frequencies to make it a little bit louder and a little bit more, what I like to call juicier. It just feels a little bit more alive versus that's a lot nicer and just more powerful. And also I think that accentuates where most of that reverb filter has the big combs going on. So that's quite nice. Then of course we want to add some stereo width to it even more. We already did that by panning left and right, but we want to just add some voices so that it just becomes bigger and wider in moderation. So just a little bit of hyper. You could potentially add a little bit of dimension as well. I've chosen not to do that because dimension gets pretty intense pretty quickly. Then in an effort to make it even more sort of metallic and to sort of give it a tail, another trick that you can employ is to just give it a really fast delay. And once again, it's going to be subtle because the sound is already nasty, but it's just going to fill it up a little bit more. It just adds very fast delays at a relatively medium-high feedback. So it kind of reverberates a little bit extra of that metallicness. And then of course, we want to put a reverb on. I've put the stock reverb on here just to show you guys, but of course, you probably want to maybe post-process this later and put some more reverb at the end of the chain. You don't need that much mix because the sound is very raspy, it's very powerful, so you want it to sound real and like it was in a room, but you don't want to drown it in reverb because it'll lose a lot of its power. And yeah, that already makes the sound like this. You can see as well that actually when we're playing, I did a little bit to this EQing here. It really helps to bring out some of those highs. I've high shelved it here a bit, which really does make a difference. And then the last thing to note here, which I haven't talked about yet because it's not super important, but we have an LFO here that is essentially acting like the envelope. I don't like to use the envelopes, but it's just giving it a little bit of attack. It's on a chord note here, it's on envelope mode, and it just makes sure that it's not too clicky at the beginning because that's not what we hear in the original song. And that also controls the noise level, by the way. So that's it for the Serum patch. Quite easy, quite simple. For this entire recreation, I found that in the mix, it sounds a lot better when there is a separate sub on there. So I've taken out the lows below 100 Hertz with a shelf. And then I've accentuated I've put even more of the high shelf on. It might not actually even be necessary. It's something I might change later. And then the only thing that it's doing is it's ducking for the kick and the snare. So yeah, very exciting sound, pretty cool, and a great use of reverb filters. Also great use of frequency modulated sine waves. It keeps on surprising me how many sounds actually just consist of frequency modulated basic shapes like the sine wave or the square wave or the saw wave. I have yet to find cool things about the triangle waves. If you know any cool triangle wave sounds, let me know about that. Always looking to learn more stuff as well, just like you. And yeah, that's it for today. This is part 1. Next week, we're gonna dive into the full drop recreation of this song, which once again, everything in context currently, what will be improved, but currently sounds like this. All right, guys, that was the video for today. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you learned something today. As always, please go and leave a like, leave a comment, subscribe. It truly helps the algorithm push this content towards more people like you. It also helps me make a living, and that also helps you learn more about drum and bass. So help a brother out and help another brother out and go and do some engagement on this video. That would be fantastic. And with that being said, good luck today. Happy producing and camera fall. And I'll see you in the next one.